Think about it. In the future, we will no longer give birth. The womb may be a thing of the past. New generations could be produced in the laboratory. I'm not reading Huxley's Brave New World right now, but that sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? But no, that quote is not just fiction anymore. Because for the first time, human DNA has been produced in the laboratory. And this is no ordinary development. This is a turning point that could irreversibly change human history. It is difficult to characterize it as a positive or negative development. It could have the same effect as the atomic bomb that ended a world war. That is, it could be an incredible development that harms millions of people while ending a war. Or it could be a new medicine that saves millions. Human history is full of great moments of breakthroughs created by scientific and technological progress. Some of these moments have extended human lifespans, improved quality of life, and defeated disease. But others caused irreversible damage. Atomic energy, while providing electricity to millions, destroyed hundreds of thousands of people in Hiroshima. Chemical engineering revolutionized agriculture and became the source of toxic waste that polluted nature and water. Genetic studies developed cures and vaccines, but also inspired the search for superior races, unethical experiments, and biological weapons projects. Science itself was neutral, but the human beings who used it often manipulated this neutral power either to improve or to dominate. And now, humanity may have reached a new threshold: synthetic DNA. In June 2025, the Wellcome Trust, one of the world's most prestigious medical organizations, announced a £10 million grant to the MRC Laboratory of Molecular Biology in Cambridge. The aim is to produce human DNA from scratch. When we talk about synthetic DNA production, it's not just about copying genetic code. What is being done here is much more radical. DNA will be reconstructed from scratch in the laboratory. Scientists first use a computer to determine which genes should be sequenced in which order. This digital design is then turned into reality using chemical methods. Bases, the building blocks of DNA, are synthesized in small pieces in the laboratory. Hundreds of small DNA fragments, each several hundred bases long, are produced. These are then assembled into larger blocks by joining them together. Like Lego, the small pieces are assembled step by step to build a larger whole, a chromosome. This synthetic DNA is then transferred into a cell. If this cell belongs to a human cell line, we observe how the synthetic chromosome works there. It is tested whether genes are expressed, whether the cell recognizes the chromosome. The aim is not only to produce a DNA sequence, but also to make it function like a real chromosome. In the past, this technology has been successful in experiments with yeast cells. Today, the goal is much more ambitious: to produce a completely artificial human chromosome. And when this happens, not only will we have changed human genetics, but we will also be able to write the human gene completely. In a sense, this means creating a new species. And why is this being done? According to scientists, the goal is very humanitarian: to eliminate hereditary diseases, alleviate age-related problems, produce disease-resistant cells, regenerate damaged organs, and strengthen the immune system. Sounds great, doesn't it? But one question remains: who will use this technology and how? Because this is not just a treatment project. It also opens the doors to a future where brand new individuals can be coded and produced. At this point, dystopian scenarios drawn by literature years ago immediately come to mind. For example, in Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, people are born not in the womb, but in incubation centers. Individuals are designed according to which class they belong to even before they are born. Alphas are rulers. Epsilons are workers whose minds are suppressed. No one questions this fate because they are all coded for it before they are born. Now stop and think. How far from Huxley's dystopia are these synthetic DNA studies we are experiencing today? If children are no longer natural but engineered, if factors such as intelligence level, physical stamina, resistance to disease become selectable, who wouldn't want a perfect offspring? But at the same time, who would want to be pushed out of the system because they were born defective? Similarly, in Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake, we witness the very different consequences of genetic intervention. Crake, the genius of the novel, creates a new human species called Craker through genetic engineering. A pure and calm species that does not fight, envy, or consume. But these re-engineered humans are no longer us. They have no emotions. Art, love, ambition, anger have all been erased. Atwood's message was clear. As humanity seeks to eliminate its flaws, it may actually eliminate humanity. Of course, when evaluating all these developments related to genetic engineering, it would be more accurate to look back to the past, especially the war periods and the studies carried out for military power, rather than fiction novels. Of course, these are only some of the studies known to the public. After World War II, most genetic studies were conducted for military purposes. Throughout the 20th century, the idea of altering human genetics and the human mind was put into practice with experiments that pushed the boundaries both in the West and the East. The MK-Ultra project, conducted by the US between 1953 and 1973, aimed to gain control over the human mind. Using LSD and other psychoactive substances on unauthorized subjects, the CIA aimed to reset their minds through methods such as hypnosis, electroshock, sensory isolation, and torture. The ultimate goal was to create programmable agents and gain the upper hand in psychological warfare against the Soviets. However, these experiments completely disregarded ethical boundaries and grossly violated human rights in institutions such as universities, prisons, and hospitals. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union was pursuing its own human engineering projects in a different direction. On Stalin's orders, the biologist Ilya Ivanov tried to produce soldiers who were insensitive to physical pain, who did not get cold in the cold, who could withstand harsh conditions. The goal was to create a biologically superior class of warriors, unquestioning but intelligent enough. Although experiments such as the crossbreeding of humans and primates were scientifically unsuccessful, the motivation behind these efforts was clear: to create a biologically modified human species that transcends nature. These ideals have resurfaced in the 21st century through much more sophisticated means. Starting in the 2000s, allegations were made in China that the genetic editing technology CRISPR was being used for military purposes. In 2020, the US Director of National Intelligence suggested that China was working on biogenetically enhanced super soldiers. In support of these claims, a 2017 strategy report prepared by one of the academies affiliated with the Chinese People's Liberation Army, PLA, included research on the development of species-specific genetic attack techniques. This effort, which started with mind control in the past, has now turned into an intervention at the DNA level. It is no longer just about controlling the human being. It is about rebuilding him/her. The most critical question is, which future will these developments take us to? Professor Bill Earnshaw from the University of Edinburgh is frightening. The genie is out of the bottle. And if an organization with the right equipment wants to create something synthetically, I don't think anyone can stop them. Will these synthetic humans be considered human? Will they have rights? Who will they belong to? And more importantly, will natural childbearing one day become a primitive choice? Today we produce DNA in the laboratory. Tomorrow perhaps we will redesign ourselves. In the science fiction series Fringe, genetically engineered beings spiral out of control. They become indistinguishable from humans. The show constantly asks the question, is it only DNA that determines whether something is human? Now this is no longer just a question of fiction, it quote, a real debate. Today we cure diseases, but tomorrow? If we become able to adjust intelligence, personality, emotional capacity with the same genetic codes, will class distinction cease to be an advantage based on wealth and be reduced to genetic codes? And what if someone wants to abuse this power? Who will stop them if they want to create superior races, develop biological weapons, commercialize bodies? We are now at a threshold. Synthetic DNA is not only a medical breakthrough, it is also an ethical, sociological, and philosophical breakthrough. What will the human being be in the future? Will we have healthier bodies, or will we be a coded species that has lost our soul? Today we started to produce DNA. Tomorrow, maybe we will rewrite the human being.